For activity number 8, we are going to build on what we've been learning about gerunds and now look at how sometimes our gerund might have some describing or modifying phrases. So to review, a gerund phrase, well, gerund is a verb that ends in ing that acts like a noun. A gerund phrase has the gerund and modifiers or complements that go along with that gerund. And so the entire phrase acts like the noun. The entire phrase acts like the subject or the direct object, and so on. So some examples here. It's not just walking, it's walking briskly, acting like the subject of the sentence. Walking isn't a good exercise. Walking briskly is. When we talk about how much did the mechanic charge for repairing? Well, it's not just repairing, it's repairing the whole car. So that whole thing acts like the object of the preposition. And 9 times out of 10, we're going to look at some examples. You could take, if you read the sentence without the gerund, if the words that are left over don't really make sense in the sentence, then they need to be attached to the gerund phrase. So we're going to do this the same way we did number 7. You're going to underline the gerund phrase this time. And I might start by just underlining the gerund first, and then I'm going to show you how this might look. So 1 says, feeding the animals at the petting zoo was fun. Now we run into a problem here because our first example has 2 verbs that end in ing. So is feeding the gerund or petting the gerund? Well, from what I know about the way sentences are structured, if I was to highlight a prepositional phrase, I would say at the petting zoo. I need to go all the way to the noun. Zoo is the noun. What kind of a noun is it, or zoo is it? A petting zoo. So this gets into what we'll be talking about next, which are participles. Participles also end in ing or can end in ing, but they're adjectives, they're not nouns. So I can tell this is not my gerund. So that must be feeding. Feeding is the gerund. Now, is it just feeding was fun? Well, that doesn't really make sense. I think the entire gerund is feeding the animals at the petting zoo. That whole thing acts like the subject. What was fun? Feeding the animals at the petting zoo. So feeding is the gerund, but it's got a bunch of modifiers that go with it. Number 2, Meryl's hobby is raising tropical fish. So I'm going to go find my gerund first. It's raising because I've got the verb that ends in ing. Now I'm going to look for any phrases, which I don't see. So I'm going to look for my subject. My subject here is hobby. Whose hobby? Meryl's hobby is. Now I've got this case again where I've got a verb that could be a helping verb. Is it talking about somebody doing the actual raising? Well, a hobby doesn't have arms or a brain, so the hobby can't actually do the action of raising. So in this case, I know that is being used as a linking verb. Now, if I took raising out, I'd be left with Meryl's hobby is tropical fish. And that doesn't really make sense. That's not the meaning of the sentence. It's raising tropical fish. So this whole thing acts like the gerund, and since it's following a linking verb, then it's got to be a predicate noun. Number 3, the Wildcats have a good chance of becoming state champions. So I'm going to go look for my gerund, and I see becoming is my verb that ends in ing. So I need to figure out what job it's doing and whether or not it's just becoming or becoming state champions. So if I took that out, the sentence would read, the Wildcats have a good chance of state champions. And that doesn't really make sense. So they have a good chance of what? Of becoming state champions. So those modifying words need to go with the gerund. Now I need to figure out the job. So I'm going to look to see, is there a preposition in here? And I see of what? Of becoming state champions. So this whole thing acts like the object of the preposition. We'll do 2 more together and then you're going to practice on your own. Every day I get a good workout by walking through the park. So I can see my gerund here is walking because it's the only verb that ends in ing. And I need to figure out, is it just walking by itself or are there some phrases that go with it? So I'm going to try reading it without. Every day I get a good workout by through the park. Well, that doesn't make sense. So I know that through the park has to be attached to my phrase walking through the park. So now I'm going to look for some prepositions, and I see through the park is one, and then I see by walking through the park. So this whole thing acts like my object of the preposition. One of my weekly chores is cleaning the gerbil cage. So I found my verb that ends in ing, cleaning. Now I have to decide, is it just cleaning? One of my weekly chores is the gerbil cage. Well, it's not, the cage can't be the chore. The chore is cleaning the gerbil cage. So that whole thing acts like the gerund. Now I have to figure out what job it's doing. So I'm going to look for prepositions, and I see of my weekly chores is a prepositional phrase. That means that one is the subject, and I've got is, and if I wasn't sure, I could think that is acting by itself as a linking verb, or is it doing the helping? Is it saying is cleaning the gerbil cage? Now, if that's an action verb, then I have to have a subject doing that action. So if it said, my sister is cleaning the gerbil cage, that would work because sisters, people have hands and can do that action. Well, a chore, one of my chores doesn't have hands, so that can't be an action verb. The chore is what? It's cleaning the gerbil cage. And so I could flip that around. Let's see if that would work. Cleaning the gerbil cage is one of my weekly chores. So again, we said with linking verbs and predicate nouns, you can switch the order. Let's go see if that works up here. Meryl's hobby is raising tropical fish. I could switch it around. Raising tropical fish is Meryl's hobby. So that's a good quick check. If you're not sure whether the verb is acting like a linking verb or not, see if you can switch the order of the sentence. All right, you're going to go on, do the rest of these on your own. When you're done, as kind of a little mental brain break, I gave you a little coloring page here, and it tells you that if the subject if it's a subject, then you're going to color it red. So let's look at sentence one. Sentence one, we said that the verbal was the subject. Then I would go find all of my ones and color them red. And that's the only one. Number two, we said, is a predicate noun. So I would go color all my predicate nouns, all my twos, purple. And I would go find all of those. So just a little mental break for you, if you would like. I'm not actually grading this. Your graded task will be to go do the exit ticket when you're done. But if you need a little brain break, a little coloring might be a fun thing to do.